You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 148 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dr. Dave Roberts. She is the Miley Cyrus of Guyton. On her wrecking ball, swinging at everything she can. Bleached her hair like Miley, but not like Miley. The weight of the world, the weight of you would crash a wrecking ball. Keep thinking you're cute. Jessica Szilagyi.
Thank you for that. I'm kind of disappointed.
That was horribly written.
It was horribly written, but I'm disappointed that if I was to be a Miley Cyrus-esque writer, I guess, that it's exclusive to Guyton. Like, Guyton's not even that big. I want more. I want more power as Miley if I'm going to be it.
Man. I do like reading your mean tweets.
Mm-hmm.
But that one was horribly written. And I think your commentary on it is like, I'm going to guess this was written by a woman.
Yes. 100%.
I don't think I'd call you Miley Cyrus. Even if I was trying to insult you, I wouldn't call you Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely... Well, here's the thing. Like, the insults that come that way don't... I mean, it would hurt my feelings more if somebody that I had interacted for a long time was just, like, super disappointed in the way I did something or, you know, offered constructive criticism, but I just, like, really took it to heart because I care what they think. I don't even, first of all, you want to be taken off my newsletter list and you're a stranger and you email me from a fake email account, so I can't even take you off the list because you're too afraid to say what you want to say with your real name. Like, I'm going to knock you down a few notches and be in the negative about what I care, about what you think.
Well, one of my favorite Rick Sanchez quotes, which is from Rick and Morty, a cartoon and one of the smartest shows on TV. Your boos mean nothing. I've seen what make you people cheer.
Yes, I love that one. Yes. I say that about Republicans and Democrats who trash libertarians.
Right. Yeah, your boos mean nothing to me.
Yeah. But yes, the Miley Cyrus, like I
don't see it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean, I don't see it. The Miley Cyrus thing, I don't see. I mean, that one was a stretch.
Mm-hmm. Like, it was just somebody mad. It came like an hour after the newsletter went out, and they're just mad and lashing out. So that's
it's probably the wife of one of the city council members or something.
It's possible. I mean, that's usually who lashes out. So
yeah, it's one of the things that's kept me out of politics. Is Connie would not like anybody saying bad things about me. And like,
what would she say if you were called Miley Cyrus?
If she were called Miley Cyrus?
No, if you were.
Oh, or something to the equivalent? Yeah, she'd be wanting to fist fight.
Yeah.
She'd go full on trailer park.
Nice.
I mean, throwing hands at somebody. Yeah, she wouldn't think it was funny. Like, it doesn't bother me. I mean, people call me names. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Like, even when my friends make fun of me, every once in a while, she'll be like, man, that's mean. I'm like, oh, that's the way we talk to each other.
Yeah, we have a toxic friendship. Whatever.
Okay, first of all, men say the worst things to each other, and we don't mean it. Women say the nicest thing to each other, and y'all don't mean it either.
Sure.
Oh, that top looks so good on you. Oh, and they walk away. What is she thinking?
I appreciate your impression too.
of the generic woman.
Mm-hmm.
So let's mention going from that to guns. Big Daddy Unlimited, who's a sponsor for our show. They are your source for guns, accessories, NFA items like silencers and short barrel shotguns. If you buy a serialized firearm, you have it shipped to your FFL, your local gun shop, and most likely, as you start filling it in, everything will pre-populate. They'll have the information for that federal firearms license holder. You go in, you fill out a 4473, walk out with your gun. NFA items take a little longer because you have to wait for the ATF. If you have accessories or parts to a gun, anything that's not a serialized firearm ships right to your house. So big thanks to Big Daddy Unlimited. Speaking of wrecking balls, one of President Trump's former Atlantic City casinos will be blown up next month, and for the right amount of money. You could be one to press the button as that brings it down.
Oh, okay. We're going to talk about the specifics, but like when you read that, what is the first thought that comes to your mind?
Oh, hell, I don't know. For the right amount of money, you could blow it up.
I mean, more from the timing of it and the fact that, you know, he hasn't been in Atlantic City as a businessman in a decade pretty much. And they're doing it to raise money. Like, it's for the Boys and Girls Club of Atlantic City. But this was the mayor's idea. And they're hoping to raise $1 million. But what are you teaching? I mean, I hate to say it like this, but like, what are you teaching the children when you say that, like, your disdain, because the mayor admits in his quotes that this is him being petty and this is him retaliating for something that he didn't like that Trump said. But what are you teaching them that, like, you should make money off of? I understand that it's going to do good, but you should raise and make money off of hatred of others.
You know, when I first read it, I didn't even look that far into it. As much as people like to make things go boom.
Well, sure, if that's just the headline you read, but if you read the quotes...
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, there's nobody in New Jersey that has any love lost for President Trump.
Right.
But, you know, as far as making things go boom, I had a 18 Charlie, who's a Special Forces demolition guy, engineer, who once told me, put his hand on my shoulder, and says, "There's no problem in the world for which a liberal use of C4 cannot solve."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, people enjoy making things go boom. I mean, it's fine for a cause, but yeah, it absolutely is a dig at Trump.
Yeah, I just don't think it's productive or helpful, and I understand that's not. I mean, I guess it is productive in the context that, I mean, they're going to probably raise a lot of money. I just think the optics are bad. I'm not a fan.
Right. Would it raise the same amount of money without Trump's name on it?
He doesn't own it right now.
Well, right. Like you said, he hasn't been involved in Atlantic City in a decade.
Right. And he doesn't own the property. And so, like, literally, it's just vindictive, that, in my opinion. Like, it's an opportunity to take a swipe, and I don't think that's, like, in the era of how everything is so polarizing and toxic, and we're not even having conversations where we listen to people. I just think it's poor taste.
Well, it is Atlantic City. It is New Jersey.
Yeah.
And Atlantic City's been a failure for a while.
And he's not the only one who abandoned a casino or a hotel, mind you. I mean, they had a bunch of them fail.
Well, it's not Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's New Jersey. And anybody who has to get on an airplane to get there is not going to Atlantic City.
Right.
I mean, you're going to go to Vegas. You know, Biloxi has been semi-successful because you've got large population areas that can drive there. But Biloxi is no Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, COVID notwithstanding, you could in Vegas at 3:00 in the morning walk outside. It's like it's daylight. Everything, people are on the street. Everything's still going on. In Lake City and Biloxi, you're not like that. Or Jackson or anybody else, anywhere else that has legalized gambling that's not Vegas.
Right.
Vegas is a separate thing unto itself, but yeah, Atlantic City has not been successful in a long time.
And I understand that. I mean, I've seen the documentaries. Whether you love him or hate him, if you can't admit that Trump screwed some people over to continue his ascension, not to political office, but just as a businessman, then you are lying to yourself. Because that's just the case of a lot of businessmen who are super successful. You cut your losses, and that means other people suffer it sometimes. But he's not the only one to do it. He just happens to be president and has polarized people from his political views and things. But, like, let's not pretend that he's the only person that just let a building deteriorate in Atlantic City.
Yeah, but how long are you supposed to hold on to a failing asset?
Well, apparently forever.
Right. I mean, if you cut your losses, and that's just part of being in business. If you have something that's not working, you don't continue to pay for it.
That's right.
So if he didn't have the customers walking through the door, if he didn't have the people buying rooms, people spending money at the casino, and they're not walking through those doors, I mean, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do. You have to cut your losses.
Right.
And yes, it sucks. And the dealers, actually a lot, anybody who's a skilled dealer can go elsewhere. And there's a definite skill to being a dealer, to being a pit boss. All those people probably went elsewhere. I'm sure the maids and housekeeping staff and all that stuff were hurt. Because, their skills are not as specialized as somebody who knows how to deal roulette or deal craps, and craps has some funky math you have to be able to do on the spot in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I know this because I actually dealt craps for for several charity auction or events. But I don't know what he was supposed to do. What the angst is with him pulling out, because if you have a piece in your body that's dead, that's dying, you cut it off. And the same thing goes for a business. For the larger organism to survive, you have to get rid of what's dead. And Atlantic City was dead. That's just the way it is. So I'm glad that the Boys and Girls Club, who does a lot of good work,
sure,
keeping kids off the street, I'm glad that they will get some healthy donations, and that the children of Atlantic City will have a place to go that's not in a bad home, not on a street corner. They'll have a positive place to go. I'm glad for it. But yeah, absolutely. Trump's just polarizing, man. He just is. I mean, I think you and I both are one of the few that don't love him or hate him.
Yeah, I hate some of the things he's done, but I'm certainly not just sitting around like thinking he's evil or
Orange Man bad.
Yeah, I'm not going to give him that much of my attention.
And he has brought a lot on himself. The 3 a.m. tweets.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's a very good example for the kids that you're raising money for.
No.
So, U.S. Supreme Court rejects Christian schools' push for COVID-19 carve-out.
This came out, I think, Thursday of last week, and it was one of the ones from Kentucky. There's been a lot of them lately. I think Colorado and one other state had different rulings and actually different outcomes for their cases. But this was one where I guess the governor sent everybody home in November through January because of COVID. So like the schools just shuttered and went all virtual for the rest of the year. And it was for public school, private school, everything. He said no schools can teach. And this private Christian school said, we have a religious exemption. You can't do this. We have we're teaching faith, all these things. And in my opinion, the answer was the reasoning for denying it was terrible in that the justices basically said the order is going to expire soon in January, and the governor has not indicated he's going to renew it. So there's no reason for us to rule on this.
Yeah, it's very weak.
Extremely. Because now the governor can be like, okay, I'm going to renew it January 3rd.
This court has been very weak in not hearing cases. It's either wrong or it's not. Well, and saying it's only wrong for 2 months, so therefore it's not worth hearing is
right. Well, and I mean, excuse us for going through the legal process that takes time, which is, the circuit courts and court of appeals. And then, I mean, it's not like they can just ascend straight to the Supreme Court and get this done on day 3.
Right. Yeah, they won't hear it until a lower court hears it.
Right.
Man, I, for one, don't believe any governor has the authority to close any private business.
Which is, honestly, that was one of the reasons that the schools were successful in other states was because, and not all of the other states, but in some of them where they said that, you're not shuttering other businesses because you deem them essential, and we're arguing that this schooling is essential, and so you can't shutter it either, and the court agreed with them. And
this is the third straight week we've talked about schooling as two people without kids in school. You can go to Home Depot. You can go to the grocery store. I mean, you can go to Best Buy. You can go to Walmart. You can go all these places, but you're saying you can't go to school. And the governor, and I don't know what the Commonwealth of Kentucky's Constitution says, but the governor should never have the authority to do that by himself. You have individual school districts. If Paulding County, which they did last week, decide that we're just going to go ahead and do distance learning the last 2 days because of whatever, that's their authority, and the superintendent and school board members are held directly in account to the citizens of the county.
Well, I really enjoyed the suggestion that they made in their opinion, which was that they might have been more successful in their case had they argued that Kentucky's health order deprived parents of their right to, quote, direct the education of their children, which was a case back from the 1990s. So they're saying that you have a right to direct your child's education, but you don't have a right to direct your child's faith, or, I mean, like, that the government can direct whether or not you operate. It's not consistent to me.
Well, it's also saying you're right, but you didn't say the right words.
But they didn't say that either because they argued that it's too soon to the expiration. Like, they took a cop out by said, for here, because next time, because this is probably going to get re-signed, so good luck.
Yeah, I have a big problem with the state closing anything private. I mean, but it was 7-2. It wasn't even close. You had Alito and Gorsuch who dissented. But 7-2 is not even close.
Mm-mm. Nope.
I mean, I know anybody who can do math on their fingers knows that 7's more than 2, but it wasn't a split decision. This wasn't a 5-4 with a swing vote, which normally Roberts goes the wrong way on every 5-4 decision. Again, Justice Roberts, please pick a different last name. I'm tired of you running mine into the ground. So I don't know, man. I think their reasoning's flawed. I think the opinion is flawed, and telling them, well, you might have you might be right under this statute, but not the one that you argued on. So we're just going to get out of the way. And again, I think it's really a cowardly thing to say, well, sure, we're letting them stomp on your rights, but it won't be for very long.
Right. Just hang on. Relief is coming because it's going to expire. Send a message. That's the entire point, is to rule whether something is constitutional or not, so that you either say, yes, other places can do this, or this place can do it again, or no, it's unconstitutional, you may not do it.
Look, if they drag you off the street and throw you in jail, and they don't charge you, don't give you your rights, and throw you in jail, but it only lasts for 3 days, it's still unconstitutional.
Yeah.
I'm not comparing the two, but it's the point of it's constitutional or it's not.
Well, you say you're not comparing the two, but I mean, what would happen?
Well,
we've seen
hyperbole.
What's happening. Right. Well, I know, but I'm saying, like, what is happening to people who are violating mask orders and congregation orders, and they're facing fines and having their business licenses stripped, and like it's never ending.
Yeah, this disease has exposed every statist for what he is.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the governors that are doing it. Cuomo, for one, in New York. I'm going to shut down all indoor dining, but you can dine outside in the middle of a blizzard.
Or in an outdoor tent that has heaters pushing air around. Don't forget about those.
Yeah, a tent outdoors. So we take the outdoors and make it indoors, but you can dine in that, but you can't go inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but it's exposing statists for what they are. And I think it's starting to expose to people what the power of the government is. And they're starting to push back. Hell, last week there was a huge protest, I think it was in Times Square, I can't remember exactly where it was in New York, of restaurant workers and owners. These are people that are having their livelihoods stripped from them.
Right.
I know that's getting
for
off
how
on
long? I know, but for how long have they been dealing with it? Like, part of me is kind of like, okay, well, you guys have waited this dang long. Like, get your shit together.
Well, the first time it was shut down, I think a lot of people bought into it. Like, okay, we're just going to have to, it's a giant shit sandwich and we're all going to take a bite. So we need to shut down, and this is for the greater good. The second time, they're like, hey, if shutdowns work, why didn't the first one work?
Mm-hmm.
You've got hair salons shut down in different states. I mean, it's one of the things that I've been pleased with Kemp about is he has not abused a lot of the authority.
Oh, he's done a good job.
He's done reasonably well.
He led the nation in reopening.
Right, and that's fine. We should have been shut down to begin with.
I agree, but we did not suffer the way that so many other...
Yes, we're not suffering like a barber is out in California or a restaurant is in New York. That he's shown as much discretion as you would expect from an executive. So I don't think he's done a bad job. I'm not banging on him. I'm just, I don't think he ever had the authority to do it.
Sure.
That's one of the things that our chairman, Dave Carmichael, that I banged on him about. He closed parks. I'm like, you dumb son of a bitch. You closed the outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's this weight of political pressure with these executives. And I don't dislike Dave Carmichael. I'm just saying, when he closed the parks, I'm like, well,
what are you doing?
The schools are closed. Where are kids supposed to go and do anything? The school's closed. What, you want them just hanging out on the street corner? The same thing I was talking about with the Boys and Girls Club. It gives them a place to be not on the corner of the street, but they closed them down too.
No, they wanted people locked in their homes.
Yeah, house arrest. I think is the word for that.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an interesting note: Joe Biden, America's fiscal conservative.
This this is just a tidbit of headlines that was going around last week, and it's driving me nuts, but they're just talking about how Biden plans to save America $2.6 billion by halting the border wall construction. And I mean, they're talking about the money that it will leave in the account and how he's going to stop the construction on day one and blah, blah, blah. I understand that a penny saved is a penny earned, but the narrative truly in these articles is that Biden is like going to cut spending. And we all know that that's not true. And we also know that not having a secure border or not having a solid immigration policy or policies here that limit the way we dole out resources to people who aren't citizens costs us a lot of money.
Well, it also doesn't save us any money stopping the border wall because there are
We've already spent money.
There are penalties to these companies that were contracted to build the wall.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think that's the difference because there's like $3.3 billion in the account and we'll only save 2.6. So that kind of tells you like what we'll be paying out on.
To get nothing.
Yeah. To do nothing. It's like when you put someone on administrative leave and you have to pay someone, like our insurance commissioner, we put him on leave and we're paying him anyway because he's been indicted. And then we're paying another insurance commissioner. Like at some point it's kind of like, well, maybe we should have just let him stay because we're paying two people. Like it's the same concept here. We're not getting anything, paying double the work, getting half the work. Except here we're getting nothing.
Well, that's you thinking like a reasonable person, which is why you would never survive in government.
True. I'd be flipping tables and stuff.
Man, you would go and buy yourself a cane so you could break it over somebody's head.
Sure. And buy it in bulk.
I would pay for that show. You wouldn't get anything done because the speaker hates you.
Yeah, I'd be in jail too. But as long as I only committed if it was a felony, because certain things you can't be arrested for, but during session, it would not be good. It would not be good.
But it'd be gold. Like you could sell tickets to the gallery. Like have somebody before they start session, a microphone drops from the ceiling. Let's get ready to rumble.
Oh my gosh. Terrible.
The Statesboro Strangler.
Oh, stop. Goodness.
But no, hey, the Biden thing, I don't know how you get better press than Biden gets. I mean, and of course, I don't know how you get much worse press than Trump gets.
True. But even Biden, I mean, the same day that they released his, fiscal conservative policies, they're talking about that 60% of Americans approve of his job as president-elect. Okay, his job as president-elect is no different than who he was as a candidate because he doesn't have any authority. He's not doing anything. He's just talking about the same old plans and he's making appointments. I mean, or who he'd like to appoint. But
what the hell is the office of president-elect? It doesn't exist.
Nothing. Exactly. So you're pulling people to talk about how great it is going to be, but it's useless.
Look, I appreciate some of the stuff he says of being everyone's president and I say he says being released in his name because I'm not sure he can string together 5 words that are coherent. I don't disagree with a lot of the sentiment that he puts out that, unify the country and all that stuff, which is never going to happen. I mean, I can't foresee a world which he's going to make me a fan of his.
Mm-hmm.
He's the man who authored the assault weapons ban from the 90s.
And yet,
so there's not a whole lot he can do to make me a fan of his, but I'm not as afraid of him as other people are. He's been in government 47 years or something like that. Eric, I'm sorry. We didn't have to get bleeped at all last week, so I'm sorry. So he's been in government for like 47 years, and we haven't burned down yet. You know, I guess I'm hoping he'll be ineffective.
But not so ineffective that they put Kamala in.
Oh, no. We need to put him on a damn, what was Michael Jackson? It was like an iron lung or something that he was in every night. We would make sure that Kamala Harris is Joe Biden's best life insurance policy. Like, no, you can't hurt him. Because she's way worse. Also, the guy that wrote the crimes bill used to take minor offenses and throw them in jail for a long time, and the person who used that bill to throw people in prison for long periods of time for minor offenses, all teamed up together and telling us they're going to do justice reform. Yay.
Ugh.
That was nowhere on the outline. That's me getting off on a hog trail, just running and ranting, which I do use this show somewhat as therapy.
No.
By the way, these are our opinions and not necessarily those of All on Georgia, and certainly not those of any All on Georgia reporter not offering commentary on this very show. And we certainly don't want our opinions to reflect on our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. Big thanks to them. So as Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue work to make sure the road to socialism never runs through Georgia, they also want to make sure no one renames private entity that is the Atlanta Braves. I read it before, but it still makes me chuckle.
I mean, this is one of those things where I got the press release and I'm like, what? Why are we having this conversation? Why are you doing this? They issued a joint statement. Again, one of those things. Who is advising them? Why are they advising them so poorly? But they issued a statement because Cleveland made a decision. Like the conversation hasn't even made its way to Georgia. And they're like, hey, we oppose this. Just in case anyone asks. And then that wasn't enough. The Georgia GOP was like, why aren't Ossoff and Warnock talking about their opinion? Georgians deserve to know how they feel about the Atlanta Braves.
So they're trying to stir up the white people.
I guess.
That's it. I mean, they're trying to stir up. First of all, there's nothing wrong with the term the Braves. Secondly, there's everything wrong with two people who are in power and in an office deciding that they want to give an opinion on what a private entity should do.
Right.
Now, look, I think there are a lot of things the Braves need to do. One is Liberty Media, who owns them, needs to spend some more money. Go ahead and solidify our rotation.
Eric suggested that Perdue and Loeffler should put the money where their mouth is and buy them.
She can. I mean, she may have to go to hubby, but if he owns the New York Stock Exchange, I'm sure he can buy the Braves.
They can make it work.
And they're for sale.
It just bothers me because it's so irrelevant. I mean, you are blowing up my inbox all day long, telling me that in my mailbox and my voicemail box, you're just incessantly harassing people to let them know that everything is on the line with the country. And the most important thing they will do this year and in 2021 is vote to keep the Senate Republican. And then you want to send out press release after press release about the Braves, which your job has nothing to do with. You cannot do anything.
You got to realize that the average person, George Carlin, think about how dumb the average person is and realize that half the population is dumber than that guy. So the concept of the Supreme Court and packing the court to most people, to at least half the population, doesn't resonate because they don't understand what that means. So you have to This is the Marjorie Greene, Donald Trump sort of internal policy where you go to the dumbest thing possible. You go to something that gets people riled up.
But it's, I don't think it's even working. I think it's so far out because it hadn't made it here yet. Like, I don't think it's even a thing.
I don't think it is either. First of all, I didn't even know that Cleveland decided to rename their team.
Well, me either, because
I still call Washington the Redskins.
Yeah.
Because they have the dumbest name ever, which is Washington Football Team. Because they couldn't decide on any name that was PC enough for them.
Well, actions have consequences.
And look, I don't think Indians is offensive. Yes, Redskins, I don't think it was meant to be offensive when they picked that name. But yeah, I understand that may have some more negative connotation to it.
The Braves.
Look, what do we have in the military? We have Black Hawk helicopters, Tomahawk missiles. They're not meant to be offensive. It's adapting, it's giving credit to what warriors Native Americans were. I mean, we didn't name the missiles limp-wristed Ossoffs. No, they're Tomahawks. Strong. We're going to kill you with it.
Yeah.
So the names were never meant to be offensive. Listen, I could almost understand the Washington thing, but when polled over and over and over again, Native Americans were polled. Do you think the Cleveland Indians name is racist? They voted no. Do you think the Braves are offensive? They voted no. Over and over and over again when polled. Like, you know what's offensive for Native Americans? Living on a reservation. The conditions on a reservation. Those things are offensive. Do you really think that somebody who's living on a crappy reservation out in Colorado somewhere is turning on TV and going, how dare they call themselves the Braves?
No, I don't.
There are real issues within the Native American community that need to be addressed, and none of them have to do with sports teams.
And you can't do anything about it as a senator.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't comment on it. You know what? Even if the Braves changed their names, and I don't even know what they'd go to. I mean, I think there was a team, the Atlanta Crackers, before. Doesn't matter what it is. As someone who represents Georgia, is you go to the game and take a picture in front of the field and say, "I still support my Atlanta teams." But officially, as a senator, I don't even know how it came. I didn't, until you dropped this story last week, I didn't know Cleveland was changing their name, because that's how much I give a damn about Cleveland baseball.
And that's how much it was impacting our lives, or is impacting our lives. It's not.
Right. I mean, they changed their name. Are they still going to suck?
Ooh. I posted about it, obviously, on Facebook, and someone was like, mad that I did, and they're like, you must not have Braves, any Braves gear, or do you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I don't support any teams from Georgia, because I like to support teams that win, so I don't support any from Georgia. And then that triggered like a bunch. And
for that, you're a turd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why can't we win at anything?
1995.
Oh.
I know you were in diapers.
At 7, I was not in diapers. Thank you. That is the second time on the show that you have suggested in like the mid-90s that I was in diapers, and I was not.
Well, I naturally assume that you were in diapers. I mean, you're so much younger than I am.
Well, I know.
But no, I grew up a Braves fan. Growing up in Florida, long time ago.
Disappointment.
Yeah, when we used Sanskrit. Florida didn't have a baseball team. So the closest team that I had were the Braves. And with Ted Turner, they were on TV every day on TBS. So it was a team that you could follow. So, yes, I grew up a Braves. I'm still a Braves fan. I get mad at them, and I curse them and everything else, especially when you're up. You need one more game to go to the World Series, and you choke. And I get mad at them, but I'm still a fan.
Right.
Man, what do you think the name change would go to?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I have no idea. The Losers?
I mean, do you think it'd probably be something stupid? The Georgia Peanuts or the Atlanta Peanuts?
The Atlanta Peanuts?
Or the Peach Trees? Or the Peaches? Or be something. Well, Peaches would be a girls' team. It would be something awful. Because they'd have to find something that's going to offend nobody. So it'd have to be something like the Peanuts.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
Maybe Washington should go with the Washington Carvers.
Oh, dear. Dave. You're better than that.
I thought they should go with the Washington Swamp Monsters.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a little scary.
That's scary?
Yeah. Taking on the swamp monsters?
Well, but yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
And I think what you said before, that they should put their money where their mouth is, what Eric said, is between the two of them, they can afford to buy that team. And I was mentioning in 1995, last time they won a national championship, it was owned by a private citizen, Ted Turner.
Mm-hmm. And
Turner loved that team. That was his pride and joy. And he was willing to spend money. He was willing to do whatever, just for his team. But we don't have that anymore. We have a corporation running it, and it's very numbers related.
Money?
Yes. Shocking. As it turns out, Georgia Republicans aren't very good at suing. A federal judge dismissed Georgia lawsuit that sought to scrap absentee voting drop boxes.
Yes, this was in my area of the state. The 12th District GOP actually filed a lawsuit, I think maybe a week and a half ago at this point, I'm not sure. But they're, I'll give them credit. I thought that it had a little bit more merit than some of the other ones, particularly because they said that, absentee ballots being dropped in the boxes and generally were subject to less scrutiny than those of us who had to show ID and things like that. So it's not equitable under the law. And then they tried to along those lines, they tried to invalidate the Secretary of State's protocol for verifying signatures on absentee ballots, citing fraud and all of those things. And the judge said, no, you don't have any standing here and we can't change the rules so close to the election. Honestly, I know no one really thought about it, and that's the whole problem, but I think I don't agree with the standing part, and I think that had it been filed prior to the November 3rd election, that it might have moved along a bit further, because there is a case to be made for our votes not being held to the same standard. Like, everything's all about voter suppression and all, the system oppressing people, and then all you have to do is sign something and drop it in, and the way that they verify, it's a lot easier than those of us who have to show an ID.
When did, and this goes back to one of the previous stories, when did time frame become an issue for the Supreme Court?
Well, this was a federal this was in the Southern District of Georgia, so it wasn't the
Well, I mean, or any
Sure.
court. When did time frame?
So, I mean, the argument is that you can't change the process in the middle of the election. I do agree with that. I mean, I do agree that you can't change the game in the middle of an election cycle. But technically, by that logic, we shouldn't have changed anything from the primary to the general, and we did. We changed the fact that we didn't send out absentee ballot applications the way that they did, the first time to everybody. There were several things that changed, whether it was by court order or because of the state election board or just Raffensperger's office saying we've got to do this, or a local board of election. So to me, I agree with that, but they're not being consistent about it.
Look, COVID was a giant piece of cheesecake to Stacey Abrams and her thing. She was drooling over it. Because there's nothing that she wanted more than not having voters verified. Sure. And
Along those lines, it was a total sham because, like we've talked about on the show before, Kemp was quarantined, leading up to it because he'd been exposed to COVID. And the CDC came out and said, if you're quarantined because of COVID right now and exposure, you can go and vote in person. It's okay. When we literally made all these accommodations because they said that people couldn't leave their house to vote and they needed to have as many opportunities of basically having it all delivered to their home as possible. It's the whole such a freaking God.
And I think we've talked about it on the show. I know you and I have talked about it. You used to have a reason, and you would have to fill it out. Why do you need an absentee ballot? Well, I'm in the Army and I'm deployed. Okay, I'm 86 years old and infirm and can't make it to the polls. Okay, but you had to have a reason. You didn't have the Secretary of State sending out ballot applications to every registered voter in the state ever before in our history.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think this is ultimately going to be the undoing of Raffensperger.
Which thing?
The election.
Oh, yeah, he's done.
He was on track to become the next governor.
No,
that's why he did what he did.
Sure.
He bought his election.
Oh, yeah.
He paid people to put signs in their yard.
Yeah.
I mean, I woke up one Saturday morning and all of a sudden there were Raffensperger signs everywhere. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Is this the dude from Cheers?
Yeah, but when
and then I met him at a meeting and was not impressed.
Yeah.
I've told plenty of people. I know Brad Raffensperger. I don't like him, but I know him.
Yeah. I'm not impressed either. Never happened.
But he just shouldn't even run in 2 years. Just get out of the way. You're done. You're cooked. If you actually do believe in team politics and you want the Republicans to hold on to it, just get out of the way. You're done.
Well, and I've said this all along too. There's been some times where he said something like, I do agree with Republicans were outworked. I don't know by how much, and I do believe in that voter fraud exists. We've had this conversation. I think it happens in every election, and I think that this is just the first time that a lot of people have acknowledged to themselves and to others. But I say all that to say that he has said some things that people needed to hear, like Democrats outworked Republicans. Across the state, by and large, they worked a lot harder than the Georgia GOP did. And that's a reality. I can agree with things like that. But he and his staffers have been so freaking condescending across the board, whether they're the victims and they've been harassed, or because they want to assert and fact check something, or just because they're giving information. They are condescending as hell.
And look, we need to say, just because we're on air, that we don't agree with any of the death threats or anything else that's gone towards Raffensperger or his family. But he's done a crappy job.
And he was largely absent this entire 2 years leading up, well, maybe not 2 years, almost a year and a half leading up to the primary, basically, when he had the spotlight turned on him. But he was inaccessible. He never went anywhere. He didn't have a public presence. He's not relatable. He didn't have a whole bunch of people like that just knew him as a human before the election. And they got him elected like this heavy base like Kemp does, where around the state, people know him truly. Like they know him. They have his phone number. He didn't have that. He didn't have a baseline of trust. So when all this has happened, he's out there on his own because he has zero relationships.
He has Loeffler's problem, where he can say all the right things and you're still like, are you an alien?
Yeah.
Like, this is not how humans relate to each other. Man, I didn't vote for him in the primary. He's totally unrelatable.
Is that code for you voted for him in the general?
I did.
Yeah, I didn't. I voted for the Libertarian, and then I voted for John Barrow because I don't like people who buy their dang seats. And this is why.
And that's what he did. And I don't know if Barrow would be any better, but I do know this about John Barrow. His constituent services were very highly rated.
Yeah, he's accessible and visible. Like, the Secretary of State especially when you have, like, the business license aspect that you do, and the optics of being engaged and involved with the elections, like, there is nothing more important.
Well,
than actually doing it with integrity and, I mean...
Well, and with optics is you get out front.
Yeah.
Now, do I know that anything would have been different under Barrow? I have no idea.
Oh, no, I have no idea.
But the optics would have been much different.
Well, the thing is, you know, we would have been with the same voting machines, whether Barrow was Secretary of State or not, and, you know, the arguments about whether or not those were legit. I mean, the legislature approved them, Kemp signed their bill, and the Secretary of State's office put out RFPs. I don't know if the RFPs would have been written differently. We don't know all that, but by and large, we probably would have ended up with the same machines because, like I've talked about before, the legislature wrote the language so narrowly so that only a few companies could apply anyway. So, there's only so much that Raffensperger could have done on his own.
Well, right. As far as the general goes, absolutely. We were talking before the show about serial numbers and accountability. And, you know, and we've spoken on the show before about how the hell do you not know how many memory cards you have?
Yeah.
I mean, you could ask Brad Raffensperger today, how many voting machines are there in the state? And be like, oh, enough?
Yeah, it's bad.
He doesn't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how many memory cards there are that work with these machines. Nobody has any idea. Nobody has an idea how many memory cards Paulding County has. And ideally, it'd be Deidre, who could tell you, well, we have 342.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, as much as everyone hollers about local control and everything, there is still a basic level of state oversight that needs to be there, and it's not. It's not.
Right, well,
there's no uniformity. Like, if you purchase the machines, which the Secretary of State's office purchased the machines, if they purchase all these machines and accessories, they are responsible for it.
Well, yeah. Even throw the election out. You should know where your assets are. Ask any private entity. Say, how many laptops do you have? They would turn their head over to accounting and go, how many laptops do we have? We have 514, sir.
Right.
Or ma'am. They could tell you to the number how many do we have. Because they bought them. You ask a state agency how many do you have? Like, it's not my money.
It's bad.
It is. And like I said, the election notwithstanding, it's just a total disregard for the taxpayer's dollar. And the memory card thing just blows my mind. I've said on the show before, if you can tell an army unit, we know how much ammunition taking to the range, down to the exact rounds, and we need that much brass back, and you can't tell a county, well, we gave you 115 memory cards, where are they?
Well, more importantly, no. I would argue that, because our names aren't with the numbers, with the ballots, but we're voter, because they can tell you how many people voted. So if I went in, I would be voter, 502. You should have a list of which voters were on which card from the machine. Like, everything should be cross-referenced.
It's not that hard.
That was
this
the
is
point
what
of
data
having,
people
exactly.
do all the
and
time.
He sold himself as a data person. That is what he sold himself. I'm an engineer or something, and I'm numbers driven and blah blah blah, and I can bring efficiency and uniformity and all this nonsense about the streams of communication.
Well, he either lied or failed.
I think it's a little of both.
And maybe so. Well, Jessica, as we're winding down, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, I just wanted to raise my own toast to South Carolina Congressman Cunningham, who opened a beer on the House floor in his toast. And, I don't really know much about him as a congressman. I thought it was hilarious that he opened a beer and raised it to his colleagues because he's leaving. But he toasted to bipartisanship and said, for the betterment of this country, we have to come together. We have to sit down and listen to one another and maybe even have a beer. And we joke about the fact that they're all friends and things like that, although I do think it's way more contentious right now than it has been. And there's truth to it. Like, it's not just in Congress. Like, in general, we need to listen. Because there's a lot of people who have no faith in the process and no faith in the system and no faith in the people who are elected. And just because some people do doesn't mean it's okay that some people don't, because we're headed down a really bad path. So,
man, I don't think it's ever been any different.
I do. I think it's way worse than it's been.
We went to war with one another.
Yeah.
But I do respect the popping a beer open on the floor of Congress.
Yeah, hilarious.
Like, this is my last day. What the hell are you going to do to me?
He didn't drink any because he had his mask on, because there's a mask order, thanks to Pelosi. Ugh. But he did raise it. He gave a speech with his mask on, which there's nothing that annoys me more when somebody has a mask on in front of a microphone and no one else is around, because we can't understand you. But I can understand you raising a beer. I know what that means. So.
Well, everybody sounds like Kenny from South Park.
Yeah.
The worst thing going to one of the restaurants we were at a marathon was a guy was wearing like a big mask, and he had an accent, and he was trying to tell us what the specials were. And yeah, I'm hard of hearing anyway, so I read lips a good bit. And I'm like, man, I have no idea what you just said. There's a noisy restaurant, and you're wearing a mask. No idea. Hey, my closing thought. Merry Christmas. The year's almost over. It's time to celebrate, be with family. Merry Christmas. As was written for me by the brains of the operation. So, for Jessica Szilagyi, I'm Dave Roberts. For our editor, Eric Cumby. For our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. Merry Christmas. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.